After 5 years of marriage, my wife, seemingly out of the blue, caught me completely off guard. It all started when I overheard her asking our daughter, "Honey, would you like it if Mr. Thompson became your new daddy?" When she replied, "Yes," I felt like a completely different person. I stopped picking up my daughter, Lily, from school on time, and I just didn't bother to respond to her messages and calls. Seeing how distant I was becoming, she finally started to panic. "I was just kidding with Lily. Do you have to act like this?" she pleaded. "If you don't trust me, I can fire Kevin Thompson tomorrow." I replied flatly, "Don't bother. Your attempts at covering up are meaningless. Your personal assistant, Kevin Thompson, has already sent me hundreds of intimate pictures of the two of you. I've collected enough evidence and have filed for divorce. I don't need either you or our daughter anymore." The prosecutor, Ms. Davis, sat across from me, looking serious. "Mr. White, you confirm that your divorce request involves demanding half of the assets in Ms. Taylor's name and giving up custody of Lily, is that correct?" My hand clenched tightly under the table, only managing to mutter yes. "We'll prepare the evidence. The hearing will be held in 2 weeks." I nodded, stood up, and left the courthouse. As I reached the sidewalk, my phone pinged. I unlocked it and saw a picture message from Kevin Thompson. "Hey Frank, Sarah took me to Monaco last week and booked the honeymoon suite." Winking face seeing the saccharine photos with Sarah, I couldn't help but chuckle bitterly. As usual, I didn't reply to Thompson's message but instead selected all the photos and forwarded them to Ms. Davis as new evidence. Then, I put my phone away and got into my car. 2 weeks ago, Sarah's personal assistant, Kevin Thompson, proactively added me on WhatsApp. I thought it was work-related and accepted, but I was immediately bombarded with intimate photos of him and Sarah. In every picture, Sarah's eyes were full of an unusual tenderness and affection. I closed my eyes, not wanting to think about the Taylor's mansion anymore. As I pushed open the door, I saw Sarah walking towards me with a strained expression. "Frank, are you not feeling well today? Lily's teacher called me and said you didn't pick her up." Looking at her gentle, concerned eyes, I just felt a lump in my throat. I shook my head. "I'm fine. Just forgot." Sarah was stunned. "Before, when my daughter was kidnapped, I was seriously injured in my lower body while saving her, and I lost a lot of blood. The doctor concluded that I could not have any more children. I have always poured out my heart for my only daughter. But today, I forgot to pick her up." At this moment, a childish voice came from the second floor. "Mom, don't let Dad pick me up anymore. Let Mr. Thompson pick me up. Mr. Thompson is much better than Dad. My friends all say Mr. Thompson is handsome." Sarah's expression changed instantly, her face turning cold. "Lily, who allowed you to talk to me like that?" Her sharp aura made Lily's face turn pale. Looking at this scene, I only felt ironic in my heart. When I devote myself to Lily, she is like a willful little devil. Sarah only needs to say a word, and she will be well behaved immediately. I stopped the angry Sarah and said softly, "Forget it." Sarah looked at me, her voice a little urgent. "The company had a meeting today. I didn't have time, so I asked Assistant Thompson to pick her up." I nodded. "Whoever can do it can do more. In the future, let Assistant Thompson pick her up. You can arrange it. Just consider it as letting Lily get acquainted with her stepfather in advance." I was about to go upstairs when Sarah grabbed my hand, her voice soft. "Frank, are you angry?" As a reflex, I pursed my lips tightly. After 10 years of marriage, Sarah and I knew each other well. Unfortunately, I only learned through the bragging of the other man that Sarah had never been sincere with me. And she easily saw through my pretense. Just when I was still silent, Sarah hugged me tightly. "I'm sorry, I didn't think so much at the time. Honey, I won't let him interfere in our family matters in the future, okay?" Her voice was as gentle as a clear stream, but it made me feel sad for everyone. Sarah is a wonderful wife. If it weren't for the photos that Kevin Thompson sent me half a month ago, maybe I would also believe that I once had true love. I suppressed the emotions that were surging and closed my eyes. Okay. Anyway, don't go your separate ways in half a month. The next morning, when I walked out of the bedroom, I was surprised to see Sarah still sitting in the living room. I couldn't help but look at the watch. Thursday, 10:30 a.m., since she took over the Taylor family, she had never been late or left early. What's going on today? At this moment, Sarah heard the movement, looked up at me, smiled, and waved. Today there is an auction for the ocean heart that you like. I'll take you to the auction. I looked at her, my chest suddenly felt suffocated. She remembers the words I said casually, and she also remembers all my preferences. But that doesn't stop her from cheating. When the two of us walked out of the house, I suddenly remembered something and asked, "Where's Lily?" Sarah's face turned cold. "I've told you, just let the nanny take her to school in the future. If she doesn't cherish your feelings, then you don't need to care about her anymore." After saying that, she put a coat on me. "Honey, I told you before, marrying you is to make you live a happy life." If it were before, when I heard this sentence, I would smile and look at her, but now I can't laugh. Sarah, am I really enjoying happiness, or are you enjoying the so-called sharing one's fortune with all feeling? I stepped forward. Let's go. Half an hour later, the low-key Maybach stopped in front of the auction house. As soon as I got out of the car, I heard a man's voice, "President Taylor, the seats for the two of you have been arranged. I'll lead the way." I turned around and saw Kevin Thompson wearing a thin suit, so cold that his face was pale. Immediately afterward, I heard Sarah's displeased voice, "It's so cold, why didn't you wait inside?" Kevin Thompson smiled and shook his head. I was afraid of missing it. In that instant, I felt Sarah's breathing become a little disordered. She was feeling sorry for me as I looked down. At that moment, I seemed to hear my heart breaking. Loving someone often starts from heartache. Sarah is no exception. I turned around and whispered, "Talk to Assistant Thompson. The matter here has nothing to do with him. Go back to the company." But Sarah grabbed my hand. "Assistant Thompson, the matter here is no longer related to you. Go back to the company." After saying that, she didn't say anything else and pulled me straight inside. After finding the seats, I was still observing the space of the auction house when I heard a soft laugh beside me. I turned to see her profile with a faint smile and the bright screen of her phone in her hand. On it was a message, crystal clear, "President Taylor is lying. Just the other day, you were hugging me in bed, saying I was the most important person, but today you've abandoned me." Looking at Sarah's face, immersed in her phone, I couldn't help but feel bewildered. How could she do that in front of me, so blatantly answering her lover's message? I slowly turned my head away, the corners of my eyes glistening with tears that had not yet fallen. After the auction started, Sarah showed clear decisiveness and shrewdness in the business world, constantly raising her paddle. Finally, she bought the ocean heart and an emerald necklace of equal value. After bidding for these two items, she started typing on her phone. This time I didn't even bother to look, and I could roughly guess who she was sending it to. Leaving the auction house, Sarah turned to look at me, her voice gentle. "Honey, I'm going back to the company first." I nodded. Looking at her hurried departure, the smile on the corner of my lips completely disappeared. I took out my phone and clicked on Kevin Thompson's avatar, seeing the post he had just published 5 minutes ago, "Having a lover who knows how to coax and is rich is so happy. Heart, attached photo is the emerald necklace that Sarah just bought." I took a screenshot and opened the chat with lawyer Ms. Davis, sending the photo over. The chat box was full of green, all evidence of his wife's cheating. Each one was like a blade, cutting off cleanly the memories between me and Sarah. Looking at my eyes, I suddenly felt them heating up. True love in fairy tales is all lies. For 2 days after the auction, Sarah did not come home at all. I ridiculed myself, thinking she must be with Kevin Thompson. I simply didn't call her. But on Saturday, Sarah called me. "Honey, Lily doesn't have to go to school today. Can you have the driver pick her up and bring her over? I'm afraid she'll bother you if she stays at home." Hearing her voice, a bitter taste welled up in my heart. 1 minute before that call, Kevin Thompson had just sent me a message: "Frank, as long as I want it, Sarah will give me everything, including your only daughter." I closed my eyes, my voice becoming cold and distant. "Okay, I'll tell the nanny to bring her over." On the other end of the line, Sarah didn't detect anything unusual. On the contrary, she started to complain. "Honey, you haven't cared about me at all lately. I haven't been home, and you haven't called me once." I tried my best to suppress the anger that was choking my throat, only saying, "I know you're busy." Before, every time Sarah was busy and couldn't come home, I would prepare a late-night snack and bring it to the company, staying up all night with her. But since knowing she was cheating, I no longer wanted to give. I thought for a moment and then tentatively asked, "Or, should I come to the company with you for a while?" There was silence on the other end of the line for 2 seconds, and then Sarah's gentle voice rang out. "No need. The company stuff is almost done. I'll bring Lily home tonight." Hanging up the phone, the corners of my mouth curled up into a bitter smile. It turned out that people's hearts couldn't withstand the test. Looking at Lily's happy figure leaving home, Nanny Mrs. Wilson was a little worried. "Sir, the young lady is still young and needs her father by her side." I looked out the window, the child I had once risked my life to protect. A hint of agitation flashed in my eyes. After being silent for a long time, I finally replied softly, "It's okay. She will have someone by her side." Kevin Thompson must maintain a good image in Sarah's eyes. I will also be a good stepfather to Lily. Pulling back my gaze, I entered the room and sat down on the soft sofa. Raising my head, I immediately saw the wedding photo hanging on the wall. Looking at Sarah's radiant face and smile, I no longer felt the same emotions as before. In fact, even now, I still don't understand why Sarah and I have come to this point. It's clear that when Kevin Thompson first joined Taylor Company as an assistant, she said that if I didn't agree, she would let the Human Resources Department hire a female assistant. That concern wasn't fake. How could I have suspected her? So even if Sarah sometimes had the scent of men's cologne or a short hairstyle, I didn't think much about it. But as soon as I added Kevin Thompson to my contacts, the first message he sent was a picture of him and Sarah in bed, his arm full of scratch marks pressing against Sarah's smooth skin, causing my world to collapse completely. I raised my hand to cover my eyes, suppressing those terrible memories. It wasn't until 8 p.m. that Sarah brought Lily home. Looking at the radiant faces of the mother and daughter, my heart couldn't help but tremble. Sarah handed me a bag. "I stopped by the watch store on the way back and picked something out for you. See if you like it." After 10 years of marriage, Sarah still remembered to occasionally prepare a few surprises for me. I casually opened the box, and it was a very expensive-looking men's watch. I forced a smile. "Pretty nice." Sarah's eyes glowed even more brightly. "As long as you like it." She sat down on the sofa, conveniently picking up her phone. Not long after, she stood up. "Honey, I'm going to take a shower, okay?" As soon as she left, Lily, who had been restless, immediately ran back to her room. The living room suddenly became quiet. I picked up Sarah's phone that she had left on the coffee table. Her password had always been my birthday, but I had never checked her phone. Perhaps because she was so sure of that, she didn't bother to exit the chat interface with Kevin Thompson. Swiping open the screen, the conversation between the two of them appeared clearly. "Kevin Thompson, President Taylor, does your husband like the gift I chose?" "Sarah, he likes it very much, but it will look even better when he puts it on." Obviously, I had already decided to divorce, but just those 2 sentences were enough to make me suffocate. I thought I wouldn't hurt anymore, but what Sarah did still made me feel so stupid. There was a moment when I really wanted to rush in and ask her why did she let her lover choose a gift for me? That gift was even something he had used, but in the end, I just quietly put the phone back. It seemed that 10 years of accumulated love was also gradually being worn away to nothing. It wasn't until the familiar scent came closer that I startled and came back to my senses. Sarah's face was right in front of my eyes, her voice full of worry. "Honey, why is your face so pale?" should I call a doctor? I looked at her, seeing her holding her phone, ready to call. I spoke up just in time. It's okay. My old illness has relapsed these past few days. My stomach is a little uncomfortable. Sarah stopped and conveniently sat down next to me, placing her hand on my stomach, her voice full of gentleness. Honey, I'm sorry. If I knew that protecting Lily that time would make you so weak, I would never have let you take the risk. Feeling the warmth from the palm of her hand, I closed my eyes. It's okay. I volunteered. I had once been willing to risk my life for this woman. Use life to protect the child who was the crystallization of our love I would have. It's just a pity that I forgot one thing: people's hearts are easy to change. Sarah, she is no longer the same woman as before. Because if she really cared about me, how could she forget that my health had recovered quite a bit? Sarah was about to say something when her phone rang. She answered the call, only listened to a few sentences, and then her expression changed. The company on the other side reported that the project has encountered problems. I have to go over there right away. You don't need to wait up for me. Go to sleep early, okay? After saying that, she didn't even wait for me to respond and had already stepped out the door. Looking at her receding figure, I only felt that the cold wind outside the window was piercing through to the bottom of my heart. The two words, Kevin Thompson, were clearly highlighted. It seemed that I hadn't felt such care from Sarah for a long time. I stood up and said to Nanny Mrs. Wilson, "Go up to the children's room and watch over Lily. If anything happens, call me." After saying that, I put on my coat and left the house. After getting in the car, I dialed a phone number. Dave, want to grab a drink? Dave is my only college friend who stayed in the city. After I married Sarah, the relationship between me and him also thinned out. A faint laugh came from the other end of the line. "You scammer, you dare to trick me? If this is really you calling me for a drink at this time, I'll eat the beer bottle." I was annoyed by the scolding and laughed. I opened the video and called Dave. 1 second, okay, here's the rewritten passage in English, using names, locations, and customs more familiar to an English-speaking audience. At a hole-in-the-wall barbecue joint across from the Old South Gate of Stamford, I chuckled, watching Dave Miller's dazed expression. "Future lawyer, huh? What kind of bottle are you planning on downing tonight?" Dave didn't say anything, grabbed the beer in front of him, and took a long swig. I was about to stop him, but his next words held me in place. "Frank White, I thought I'd never see you again." Dave looked at me, his eyes reddening. "Ever since you got married, you've practically cut me off. It's like our friendship was nothing compared to your love life." He stared intensely into my eyes. "So, seeing you today makes me genuinely happy. Honest words often hurt, but they also touch the bottom of your heart." I lowered my head, hiding the tears in my eyes. It turns out, for the sake of a fickle love, I had hurt my most valuable friend. After a long time, I looked up and smiled at Dave. "Well, let me tell you something that'll make you even happier. I'm filing for divorce." Dave's eyes widened, but he didn't ask any questions. He just raised his beer bottle high. "Frank, congrats." The sound of clinking bottles rang out, along with laughter that I hadn't released in a long time. To new beginnings. That night was the first time I slept outside my own home in years. It was then that I realized how liberating it could be to live alone. No need to wake up early to the birds singing. No need to worry if my kid would kick the blanket off. No need to get up at 6 a.m. to make breakfast for Sarah because she wouldn't eat if it wasn't just right. Lying on a large bed in the hotel, I drank myself silly and slept soundly. The next morning, I woke up to a note left by Dave on the bedside table. "Frank, something came up at work. Gotta run. Hit me up if you need anything." I folded the note and put it in my jacket pocket, then grabbed my phone, which had only 1% battery left. 3 messages from Kevin Thompson, 1 missed call. Nothing else. Looking at those messages, I just felt ridiculous. I haven't come home all night, and the only one who contacted me was my rival for my wife's affection. Looking at the family photo I used as my lock screen, I suddenly felt cramped. I opened the photo album, selected a landscape photo I had taken, and replaced it, then left the hotel. Back at the house, the first thing I did was charge my phone, then take a shower and throw my alcohol-reeking clothes into the washing machine. Only when all the chores were done did I have time to open Kevin Thompson's messages. Frank, Sarah's pregnant. She and I went to the hospital last night. I bet you're feeling pretty lonely all by yourself. I should thank you. If you couldn't have kids, would this have happened to me? I was too overwhelmed to say anything, because a call from Sarah suddenly interrupted my reading of those hateful messages. As if she could hear the words in my mind. Her voice was tired. Honey, when I was pregnant with Lily, you scheduled an exam at the women's hospital. What doctor did you make the appointment with, and on what date? One of my clients is pregnant and needs some care. Client. I lowered my eyes. The noise of the washing machine drowned out the sound of my racing heartbeat. The emerald necklace was a gift for a client, and the prenatal exam was also for a client. Sarah simply didn't care about my feelings, and that's why she could make so many careless, hurtful lies. My chest was heavy, and my voice turned cold. I forgot. I have things to do, I'll talk to you later. After ending the call, I sat blankly on the chair in the bathroom, my face empty. A long time later, I finally called Ms. Davis. Ms. Davis, what if my wife has a child out of wedlock? Ms. Davis paused slightly before replying, Frank, according to Clause D of the Civil Code, a child out of wedlock also has the right to inherit property, but having a child out of wedlock can be considered evidence of infidelity. You will gain an advantage in the division of property. I ignored the bitterness rising in the corners of my eyes and replied softly, I know. 7 p.m. Sarah returned home as scheduled. I looked at her and noticed that the way she was looking at me seemed cold, as if she was trying to suppress her anger. Why did you hang up on me? It's just a doctor, what's so hard to say? After 10 years of marriage, this was the first time Sarah showed a cold attitude towards me. Was it because of her and Kevin Thompson's child? Thinking about it, a pain that I couldn't describe hit me. Sarah always thinks she will just explain, apologize, like before. But when she saw my clear eyes suddenly turning red, she suddenly felt apprehensive. Sarah didn't know where this feeling came from, and she finally decided not to say anything more, walking into the study and closing the door forcefully. In the living room, I looked at the closed door of the study, and tears suddenly fell. The trees outside the window swayed with the wind, accompanied by the sounds of suppressed sobbing. The house fell silent. I didn't want Sarah to see me in such a pathetic state, so I staggered into the bedroom. Lying on the soft bed, I only felt cold all over. Just when I had calmed down, Sarah pushed open the door and entered. She sat down next to the bed, looking at me, her voice both helpless and gentle. Are you really ignoring me? Are you going to give me the cold shoulder? Don't you have any conscience? In that moment, I seemed to return to the time when she loved me wholeheartedly. My throat felt like it was pierced by a piece of thorn. I clutched the blanket tightly, trying to stay calm, and replied, It's late. Go to sleep. Sarah heard that my voice was hoarse, and her expression immediately became strained. She immediately hugged me tightly. Why are you crying? It's my fault. I shouldn't have scolded you. Don't be angry anymore. I won't do it again in the future. Just one short sentence was enough to make the emotions I had been suppressing for so long explode. I desperately thought, how could someone so gentle betray our marriage? How could she hurt me so deeply? Feeling the warmth coming from Sarah, I let myself sink into sorrow and despair. Cry. Let it be the last time I cry for this person. That night, I cried until my voice was hoarse, as if I wanted to cry out all my grievances and unwillingness. Many times, I wanted to ask her why did true love disappear so quickly, why didn't you give me even a decent breakup? Sarah was disturbed by my crying, constantly patting my back gently. Frank, honey, it's my fault. Be good. Don't cry anymore. You're making me sad. I don't know how long it took to coax me to calm down. Sarah looked down and saw that I had fallen asleep long ago. She breathed a sigh of relief and unconsciously hugged me tighter. At that moment, her phone suddenly rang. She reached out, swiped the screen, unlocked it, and saw the message from Kevin Thompson. She couldn't help but curl her lips slightly. She sent back a voice recording, "Go to bed early. You're very weak these days. Don't stay up late." Putting down the phone, she hugged me tightly again and placed a kiss on my forehead. "Honey, sleep well." But in the darkness, she didn't see me. The person who was being hugged tightly was still closing her eyes and tears were falling silently. I don't know when I fell asleep. When I woke up, my eyes were still sore. As soon as I moved, Sarah's gentle voice, mixed with a bit of joy, rang out. "Honey, don't move. Your eyes are swollen. You have to put on an ice pack." I asked unconsciously, "What time is it now? Why haven't you gone to work yet?" Sarah laughed. "You've become like this, how dare I go? I've already told my assistant that I won't be coming to the company this week." My heart suddenly missed a beat because Ms. Davis had confirmed that the divorce hearing would be held this Sunday. About half an hour later, Sarah finally took the ice pack off my eyes. As soon as I opened my eyes, I saw her wearing sportswear. Sarah smiled and said, "Haven't you always said you wanted to go to the park to have fun? I'll take you." I lowered my head. That was a request I had made in the second year after we got married. But Sarah always said she was busy. Busy until now, when I want to get a divorce, she wants to take me there. A moment later, I looked up and smiled softly. "Okay, let's consider it the last fun before we part ways." After changing clothes and going downstairs, I heard Sarah talking on the phone in the study. "The test results show that the pregnancy hormone is too low. How could this happen? I'm coming over right now." After Sarah finished the call and came out, she saw me sitting on the sofa, my face pale. She was slightly apprehensive, but still opened her mouth. "Honey, I have to go out for a while. Wait for me to come back, okay?" In that moment, Kevin Thompson whispered into my mind, "Frank, Sarah no longer has feelings for you. Can you please just let her go?" True, a promise that has never been fulfilled from the beginning can never become a reality. I sat at home and waited until late at night, and then Sarah called back. Her voice was somewhat flustered. "Honey, I won't be back for a couple of days. The company has too much to do." My eyelashes trembled slightly. Perhaps because Sarah had lied too many times, she didn't even bother to think of a plausible excuse. My silence made Sarah even more flustered. She continued, "When I get back, I will definitely take you to the park to have fun." I was silent for a long time, then smiled softly. "Yeah, whatever you say. It's cold, remember to take care of yourself." At that time, Sarah on the other end of the line breathed a sigh of relief, and her voice became much softer. "Okay, honey, go to bed early too. I'm hanging up now." I didn't wait for me to say anything more. The phone was hung up. The sound of the calls was like a heavy blow to my heart, creating a lingering pain. In the brightly lit room, my sadness was exposed to the fullest extent. I don't know how long it had passed, I received a message from Sarah. "Honey, are you asleep? It's snowing outside. It's been a long time since I saw snow in this town." I stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. Indeed, it was snowing, not much, but flying all over the sky. I was suddenly stunned. In the first year that Sarah and I were together, the town also welcomed the first snowfall. On that snowy day, Sarah had prepared hot water bottles and hot milk, held my hand, and strolled on the athletic field together. It was clearly very cold, but she was extremely excited. "Frank, when two people in love bathe in the snow together, it's like they'll be together for a lifetime. Take a look, do I look like your future wife?" The snow from that year on her hair, mixed with the snow today outside the window, made my nose sore. Also at that moment, Kevin Thompson also sent a photo of a luxuriously decorated room with the reflection of the two of them embracing affectionately on the glass door. "Frank, the snow is beautiful. Looking at the smile that was full of Sarah's eyes in the photo, I only felt that my chest was full of snow, cold to the bone. I looked at the snow outside the window, standing in the empty living room, and murmured softly, "Sarah, you clearly said that we would be together until we were old, so why did you abandon me first?" The next day, I received a call from Ms. Davis. "Frank, can you come to my office for a visit?" I agreed, didn't call a driver, and took a taxi to the courthouse in the snowy weather. Stepping into the prosecutor's office, I only heard voices echoing from all directions. Legally, there is no such thing as leaving the house empty-handed. Currently, during the waiting period for the divorce, the two are still legally married. Unfortunately, the act of domestic violence has not reached the level of minor injury. We still prefer mediation. The people sitting in front of the lawyers' desks were either tired or desperate. There was not a single smile on their faces. My heart suddenly trembled. How am I any different from them now? "Frank, over here." Just then, Ms. Davis stood up and waved to me. I walked over. Ms. Davis immediately handed me the documents. "I have sorted out all the evidence you provided. You just need to sign this power of attorney and wait for the results of the trial." I picked up the pen. Looking at the words "broken marriage" on the lawsuit, my heart ached. I unconsciously remembered the wedding with Sarah. I remembered when the two of us stood together in front of the priest, vowing to hold hands for the rest of our lives, our eyes gentle. But today, only I was facing the divorce papers. I am willing to marry this person. Even in poverty, sickness, or the separation of life and death, we cannot be separated. The corners of my eyes suddenly became burning. I squeezed the pen in my hand and wrote in the signature column. Plaintiff, Frank White. According to the law, I am filing a lawsuit with the court, requesting a ruling on the divorce between me and Ms. Sarah Taylor. There were 3 days left until the trial. Sarah still hadn't returned. I looked at every message that Kevin Thompson kept sending and immediately switched to Do Not Disturb mode. The lawyer had prepared everything, and I didn't need to submit any more evidence. And the sweetness between my wife and another man, I finally don't have to see it anymore. I laughed at myself. Suddenly, I heard Lily's voice from behind. "Daddy, will you pick me up from school again?" I stopped her and listened to her continue as if it were a matter of course. "Mr. Thompson isn't feeling well lately. When he gets better, I won't need you anymore." Looking at the daughter who looked just like Sarah in front of me, I felt cold. After being silent for a while, I shook my head gently. "Lily, Daddy is also busy." Lily seemed not to expect that she would be rejected. Her eyes were red and she stomped her feet, saying, "You're not worthy of being a father." Looking at her back as she angrily left, I couldn't help but think of Sarah's question as she kissed her, "If you let Mr. Thompson be your daddy, would you be willing?" At that time, Lily had replied loudly, "Of course I would be willing." Thinking of this, my mouth felt bitter again. That's right, soon I won't be her father anymore. In 3 days, they will all get their wish. The night before the trial, Sarah finally returned. She was cold and hugged me. "Honey, did I make you wait too long?" I stiffened for a moment before replying softly, "It's okay. In less than 10 hours, our story will come to an end." This was the last time Sarah hugged me, and it was also the last day she called me husband. I closed my eyes, feeling numb with pain. That night, Sarah was lying on the bed and suddenly spoke up. "Honey, shall we go to Tampa for vacation this year?" The 2 words "our family" were like a hook, pulling and jerking my heart with pain. I took a deep breath and tried my best to suppress the bitterness in my nose before saying softly, "Okay. You can let people arrange it. Only, Sarah, this time, whether you break your promise or not, I won't wait anymore." In the darkness, her soft laughter rang out. "Honey, you're so good. I love you so much." A simple word of love made me stunned. Sarah and I haven't said that word in a long time. So long that when I heard it again, I was as shocked as the first time. When I came back to my senses, Sarah had already fallen asleep long ago. I reached out and gently caressed her cheek, a trace of tears flashing in my eyes. It's just a pity that the love between us is gone. The next morning, Sarah woke up and habitually reached out to the side, but only touched the cold, empty space. She was stunned, opened her eyes, and called out reflexively, "Honey?" No one answered. Sarah propped herself up, sat up, rubbed her forehead, and felt heavy. She looked at her phone and saw a missed call from her secretary. She frowned and was about to call back, but the screen suddenly displayed 2 words, "Honey?" Sarah answered the call reflexively, "Honey, where did you go?" On the other end of the line, I used an unprecedentedly calm tone, "I am waiting for you at the district courthouse of the city." Sarah's eyebrows furrowed tightly. Before she could ask anything, the other end of the line had hung up. A strong uneasiness swept through her heart, but she still hurriedly changed her clothes and drove straight to the courthouse. 9:50 a.m. Sarah got out of the car and immediately saw me standing in front of the courthouse. She walked over quickly, her voice worried, "Honey, what are you doing here? What happened?" I raised my head and looked at her, a trace of complexity flashing across my eyes, then stopped at Ms. Davis. I said calmly, "Lawyer Davis, the plaintiff Frank White and the defendant Sarah Taylor have arrived. The divorce trial can begin." Sarah stopped, not believing her ears, staring at me. "What are you talking about? What divorce?" I looked at her with cold eyes, a look that she had never seen before. My voice was also very distant. "President Taylor, instead of asking me, why don't you think about how you should defend yourself later?" After saying that, I turned around and entered the court with Ms. Davis. 10 minutes later, in the courtroom, the plaintiff Frank White versus the defendant. Okay, here's that passage rewritten in English, focusing on Americanized names, locations, and social customs, while maintaining the story's plot. Sarah Taylor, due to multiple instances of infidelity with a male assistant during the marriage, and now being pregnant with his child. The judge's voice cut through the courtroom. "Defendant, is this true?" Sarah, still reeling from the revelation, snapped her head around to look at me, shock plastered across her face. It was clear she hadn't expected me to know about the baby. "Defendant, is this true?" the judge repeated. Ms. Davis presented all the evidence of infidelity, irrefutable proof that left no room for denial. Even though Sarah didn't admit it outright, this unexpected turn of events completely threw her off balance. Just then, the sharp rap of the gavel echoed. Based on irrefutable evidence, this court officially declares the marriage between plaintiff Frank White and defendant Sarah Taylor null and void. As per the plaintiff's request to relinquish custody, the defendant must compensate for damages incurred during the marriage, transferring 30% of her shares in Taylor Enterprises within 30 business days. I had barely stepped out of the courtroom when I saw Sarah waiting. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hands clenched. "You planned this all along, didn't you?" she accused, her voice shaking with rage. A wry smile twisted my lips. "And what if I did? Sarah, this is what you owe me." With that, I shrugged her off, turning my back and walking away without a backward glance. In the car, Ms. Davis smiled. "Frank, congratulations. You've got your life back." I nodded, feeling grateful. "Couldn't have done it without you. From now on, I wouldn't have to force myself to act or pretend with Sarah. Just being true to myself would be enough." Sarah, dazed and disoriented, clutched the divorce decree, stumbling back to her mansion. A phone ping startled her. It was a text from Kevin Thompson. "Sarah, I'm not feeling well. Can you come see me?" Sarah wiped her face and replied, "I'm busy today. I'll send a doctor to check on you." Texts from Kevin kept flooding in, but Sarah's mind was a tangled mess. Finally, she muted his notifications and opened the chat log between me and her. The screen froze on yesterday's message, "Honey, I'm busy with work. You and Lily eat at home, okay?" Back then, she was immersed in Kevin Thompson's gentle embrace, so much so that she didn't notice anything unusual about me. Before, when she came home late, I would ask her all kinds of questions. Now, I didn't even bother. In reality, those types of conversations had started a long time ago, she just hadn't paid attention. After all, she was too confident, but she was not satisfied. Sarah felt a pang in her chest, tightly clenching her phone, sending me a text. "Honey, do you really have to be so cruel? Why won't you give me a chance to explain?" The message was sent, but only a red exclamation point showed next to it. I had already bought a new house outside the city, and I didn't plan on staying in Chicago for long. Once all the divorce paperwork was finalized, I would move to Atlanta. My spirits were high, and I slept soundly and peacefully in my new place. Hearing that I was divorced, Dave Miller blew up my phone insisting I go out for drinks. The next day, I met Dave at the arranged spot. As I arrived at the parking garage, I saw a familiar figure standing near my car. "Frank, do you really not need me and Lily anymore?" I saw Sarah. Her hair was messed up, her clothes disheveled. Her voice was cold. "We're divorced, what are you doing here?" Sarah walked closer to me. The dark circles under her eyes were clear to see. Obviously, she hadn't slept well for several nights. Me and Kevin Thompson were really just an accident. That night, I was drunk. The rest was an accident too. I coldly avoided her, unwavering. Sarah looked blank for a few seconds, her throat dry, her face showing obvious signs of fatigue. "If you'll just come back to me, I'll break up with him immediately." I knew those words were just lies. I was expressionless. "Sarah, I don't want things to get ugly. You're a public figure now too. You probably don't want to affect your stock prices, do you? How gentle and kind I used to be with her, and how cold I was now." This change stabbed Sarah in the bone marrow, and I didn't want to get involved with this woman anymore. "Sarah, there's nothing left to say between me and you, and there's no possibility of turning back. Get out of here." After coldly saying that, I opened the car door. After getting in the car, "What about Lily, Frank? You don't need Lily either?" Since the day Lily was born, I have always cherished it as a treasure. Sarah didn't believe I could let go so easily. I tilted my head and looked at her calmly. "She likes Kevin Thompson so much, you should bring him home as her stepfather soon." After saying that, I started the car and left without any hesitation. Dave was waiting for me at the small barbecue restaurant where we had eaten before. Hearing me retell the story of the trial, he slammed the table and shouted, "She deserves it." I laughed and drained a glass, never feeling so comfortable. "From now on, I'm free." Dave glared at me. "Frank, I'm warning you, don't let her sweet-talk you and then fall again." I smiled bitterly. How could that be? After all those days of pretending to be loving with Sarah, I've seen through her nature. I returned home in a light mood and discovered that Kevin Thompson had sent me another picture. In the photo, Sarah was tipsy and slumped in his arms. Both of them were naked. "Frank, she's like that every night, falling into my arms." I didn't delete the picture Kevin Thompson sent. I treated him no differently than an electronic pet, but now that I was about to leave New York, I didn't want to have anything to do with those two people anymore. I rarely replied to his messages. "You and that bitch are a perfect match." Then, and one more thing. Watch the bitch. After sending the message, I immediately blocked Kevin Thompson and then wrapped myself in the quilt and had a good sleep. After that, I had a few truly quiet days until the third day when I received a call from a strange number, but the voice that came through was very familiar. "Frank, the agreement for the transfer of 30% of Taylor's shares is ready. Let's meet." This time, I readily agreed. Okay. Sarah asked me to meet at a quiet restaurant. Today, she looked better than last time, at least she was dressed neatly. I went straight to the point. "Here you go. Sign here, Sarah." Sarah stared at me without blinking. Hearing this, her eyes suddenly darkened, and her voice was hoarse. "Frank, is there really nothing left to say between us?" I looked at her. "Sarah, I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore. I hope you have some self-respect and don't let me despise you even more." Sarah's throat choked up. That's right, the person in front of her was no longer the husband of the past. The one who wasn't gentle, who wasn't submissive, and who no longer rushed over to hug her whenever he saw her. Sarah said softly, "Then, at least have this meal with me, okay?" My voice was cold and clear. "You have said so much. This is it." Every time I saw Sarah, the pictures Kevin Thompson used to send would pop into my head. Each photo was so incriminating that it could blow up online. But because she insisted on inviting me, I had to reluctantly endure it. In front of me were all the dishes I didn't like. Each bite was tasteless to my throat. After eating, Sarah kept her word and handed me the stock transfer agreement. I read each clause carefully, didn't find any problems, and signed my name. Then, I picked up my share and stood up to leave, but she called me back. "Frank, even if you can't forgive me now, can we at least still be friends?" Her eyes were sincere, and her voice was earnest. If I were the former me, I might have softened, but now, there was no forgiveness or unforgiveness. I didn't want to be friends with a morally bankrupt woman. Seeing my resolute back leaving, Sarah was as if her strength was drained. She collapsed into the chair. The next day, after receiving the shares, I booked a plane ticket and flew straight to Atlanta. My parents and relatives were all in Atlanta. When I was planning to leave New York, I received a job offer here. I studied fashion design in college, so this job was at a fashion studio. The plane landed in the afternoon. I took a taxi straight home to my parents. When I married Sarah, my family was very opposed because of the distance. Because Sarah had nothing in hand at that time. But I still disobeyed my parents and even made them sad for me. Over the years, I have always regretted that. When I stood in front of the door and rang the bell, I was still worried. As soon as the door opened, my eyes were already red. Frank, my mother, stopped for a moment, and then immediately smiled, calling into the house, "Dear, come out here and see who's back." Between New York and Atlanta is thousands of miles. I haven't been home for 3 years. Seeing the happy faces of my parents, I couldn't help but burst into tears. "Oh my God, what are you crying for?" My mother chided, but her voice was full of joy. My mother cooked a table full of delicious food. It wasn't until dinner that my mother asked, "Did you come back alone?" I reflexively glanced at my parents, who had never liked to mention Sarah. "What's up with them?" Frank replied, "Yes. We are divorced." "What?" Both my mother and my father were stunned. My mother reacted and frowned, her voice serious. "What happened? Why didn't you say anything?" I took a slight breath, lowering my head, and said, "We're not compatible, so we got divorced. We've been married for 8 years, and our daughter is 7 years old, and now you say we're not compatible." My father glared at me, his eyes full of undisguised anger. "Tell me the truth. Did she do something wrong to you?" I didn't want to say anything more, just replied softly, "That's it, Mom and Dad. From now on, I'll stay in Atlanta and not go anywhere else. I don't want to have anything to do with her anymore." Hearing me say that, the two of them looked at each other and finally didn't ask any more questions. I returned to my room and saw the familiar decorations, and all my childhood items were still there. My nose became sour again. From a young age, my parents have always cherished me like a treasure, but I made them sad for someone who was not worth it. But from now on, there would be no more. I would never stumble again. When Sarah knew that I had left New York, Kevin Thompson was sitting right next to her. The phone volume was not low. Kevin Thompson also heard clearly. Looking at Sarah's gloomy face, he said softly, "Sarah, is it true? Frank is gone, so will we be together in the future?" Kevin Thompson observed her expression and suppressed the excitement in his heart. Sarah, who was extremely tired, rubbed her forehead and said coldly, "Kevin, you should go rest." "I'm tired." Kevin Thompson wrapped his arms around her waist. "Sarah, you said that once you divorce Frank, you will marry me and let me be Lily's father." Enough. Sarah's heart ached whenever she heard the word divorce. She slowly took his hand away and looked at him with cold eyes. "The only value you have to me is this pregnancy. So, you just need to wait for it to be born. Don't dream about anything else." Kevin Thompson looked at the woman in front of him, his eyes filled with strangeness. He had dreamed about her so much, but now he only got such cold words in exchange. Tears streamed down his face, and he roared, "Sarah, how can you treat me like this?" What replied to him was, "It's just her cold back." Perhaps he should have understood long ago that a woman who can be so cold to the person she has lived with for so many years, how can she give her true feelings to him? I planned to rest for a few days before starting work. For these few days, I just stayed at home with my parents, but seeing me silent in the house, they were worried that I would be depressed. That afternoon, my mother pulled me out. "I'll take you for a walk." In the area, there is a crystal-clear lake where colorful carp can be seen swimming all year round. My mother and I were walking around the lake while chatting. We were talking when a big black Alaskan dog blocked our way. This Alaska should have been tied to the fence and still had a muzzle on, but I don't know how it escaped by itself. Now he was sitting next to the rope, wagging his tail and looking at me expectantly. One person and one dog looked at each other. "Oh my God, this dog looks scary." My mother was very afraid of animals. I pulled and decided to take a detour, but the dog kept wrapping around us and wouldn't let us go. Just as my mother and I were in a panic, a slender figure rushed over. As soon as she saw the scene, the girl immediately grabbed the dog's head and quickly reattached the rope for it. The owner was a young girl, her movements were quick and decisive, and Alaska did not resist at all. I'm sorry. I just went to the restroom for a while, thinking it would be okay to tie it here, but I didn't expect it to be so smart." After finishing the cleanup, the girl quickly bowed her head to apologize to us. I smiled and shook my head. "It's okay. It's very cute." The young girl also smiled. "If you like it, you can touch it. It won't bite people or run around." Seeing this, my mother suddenly coughed softly and then turned to me and said, "Yeah, I suddenly remembered that I have a mahjong date with a friend. You can go back first." I didn't have time to react, but my mother had signaled with her eyes and then left quickly. The girl smiled brightly and said, "If you like dogs, you can come with me next time to walk it. You can come along." "Thank you." I reached out and stroked the big dog's head. "Oh, by the way, my name is Layla. Let's be friends, and then I'll send you pictures of Apollo." The girl was very friendly, and I also readily agreed to exchange names and contact information. I was about to get home when I realized that Layla's house was right across from mine. I was about to say goodbye when a cold voice suddenly rang out from behind. "Frank, who is she?" I stiffened and turned around, facing Sarah's cold eyes. She had cancelled a meeting and come here. She never thought that when she first arrived she would see me chatting happily with a strange woman. That smile was a smile she hadn't seen for a long time. Her chest was suffocating. "What are you doing here?" My voice was cold, and my face was expressionless. Now, seeing Sarah, all that was left in my heart was disgust. Sarah stepped in front of me, her eyes staring at me. "Frank, I still hope you'll give me a chance." I sneered and coldly asked back, "You're unwilling, right? The prestigious CEO like you is being dumped for the first time, huh?" Seeing the indifference in my eyes, Sarah took a deep breath, her voice gentle. "Let's go home and talk. If it is what you know, that I can explain it clear without any disturbances with the people looking at me." I had to lean over and said to Layla, "I'm sorry, please take Apollo back first. I'll come over to play with it another time." Layla gave Sarah a nod. "Okay, see you then." After Layla left, I turned to Sarah and said, "I've already said that there's nothing to say between us. Don't meet again in the future." My expression was very serious, and Sarah's heart suddenly surged with a feeling of pain. "Is it because of those rumors?" "If it's because of that, I'll clarify it and I won't let you." I looked at the woman in front of me and only felt ridiculous to the extreme. "I'm gone, and no one will stop you and Kevin Thompson from getting together. I don't want to be the third wheel in your relationship." Words were at this point, I really had a little strength to go with her more. "Alright, here's that passage rewritten with Americanized names, locations, and customs, keeping the story's core intact." Sarah Taylor, due to multiple instances of infidelity with a male assistant during the marriage, and now being pregnant with his child. The infidelities were numerous and repeated, not a singular event. The judge's voice was like a hammer, pounding the truth. Defendant, is this true? Sarah hadn't fully processed everything, hearing that she snapped her head around to look at me, her eyes wide with shock. It was clear she hadn't expected me to know about the pregnancy. Defendant, is this true? The judge repeated, his voice stern. Ms. Davis presented the evidence of infidelity, emails, photos, texts, hotel bills. It was clear and undeniable. Even though Sarah wouldn't admit it, this bombshell had completely derailed her. Suddenly, the sharp rap of the gavel echoed. Based on the presented evidence, the court officially declares the marriage between plaintiff Frank White and defendant Sarah Taylor void. As per the plaintiff's request to relinquish custody, the defendant must compensate for damages incurred during the marriage and transfer 30% of her shares in Taylor Enterprises within 30 business days. I walked out of the courtroom, and there she was, Sarah, waiting. Her eyes were red and swollen, her hands clenched. You set this up from the beginning, didn't you? She accused, her voice laced with fury. I smiled, a cold, mirthless expression. So what if I did? Sarah, this is what you owe me. With that, I brushed past her and left, never looking back. Her coldness and finality were like a bucket of ice water thrown over her. Her body froze, and she could only watch me walk away. She no longer had the courage to chase me. Her face was a mask of disbelief. Throughout their marriage, hadn't she loved me, at least at the beginning? She didn't want to admit it. When they were together, my family's wealth surpassed hers, and even with her accomplishments, people still said she was a gold digger, riding the coattails of a man. It seemed that because she had a husband like me, her efforts were not being acknowledged. Kevin Thompson's presence gave her a sense of being on top again. She could no longer tell if she truly loved Kevin or if she just wanted to find the sense of being called CEO Taylor, the powerful head, again through him. She wanted everyone to know that it was I, Frank White, who was clinging to her. She assumed I could never leave her. That is, until she saw me walking away decisively. When I get back, I had several job offerings waiting for me when I decided to get back to work. When I get back to New York from Atlanta, I get a new job in Soho. They are very forgiving that I was taking care of the marriage before. The studio owner was a great woman. A woman in her early 40s who started her own brand from scratch and now has a reputation in the fashion world. She also designed some evening gowns for stars. Also, they had both been divorced and had daughters and quickly found common ground. After work, she invited me to eat at a restaurant near the company. When I walked into the private room, I saw a familiar figure. Layla was there, from the last time I met her on the lake in the neighborhood. After that, she also asked me to take the dog for a walk, but I was seen facing Sarah, so I declined out of embarrassment. At first, Layla's face had no expression, as if she was in a bad mood, but when she saw me walk in, she sat up straight and called out in surprise, "Frank." The owner looked at Layla and then at me, hesitating and asking, "Do you two know each other?" Before I could ask about their relationship, I heard Layla call out, "Mom." I stared wide-eyed, stiffly asking, "You're this rebellious daughter you mentioned?" Layla laughed, looking at her mother, and said, "Mom, do you talk about me like that with other people?" The owner laughed and pulled me to sit down, glaring at her daughter. "Isn't that what a rebel you are? Right after graduating, you started your own business against my wishes." Layla could only smile wryly, turning to me and explaining, "I studied computer science and started making games in my freshman year. By senior year, the game was successful, and I opened my own studio. I made some money, so I didn't want to rely on my family anymore." After chatting for a while, I discovered that the two of them were very close, more like two friends than mother and daughter. Layla looked at me and joked, "When Mom asked me to go to dinner, I thought she wanted to introduce me to a boyfriend again." I laughed, curiously asking, "Does she often introduce boyfriends to you?" The owner quickly defended herself, coughing lightly and saying, "I didn't force you. I just wanted you to go out more." I laughed. The image of Lily, the baby I wasn't very close to, appeared in my head, and my eyes darkened slightly. Perhaps at this moment, she and Kevin Thompson were living in harmony. Who knows, after a while, she would forget about me. After dinner, Mom wanted to go home. Knowing that Layla and I lived in the same area, she asked Layla to take me home. On the way home, the two of them were talking about Apollo, the Alaskan dog. Layla suddenly asked, "The woman from the other day was your wife?" I lowered my eyes and said softly, "Ex-wife." Layla's fingers tightened on the steering wheel. At a red light, she turned to look at me. I recognized her. "Sarah Taylor?" I stopped, surprised, and asked, "You know her?" Layla was silent for 2 seconds before replying. "I saw her on the news." I immediately thought of the scandals of Sarah and Kevin Thompson before. I took a deep breath, not saying anything more. Perhaps seeing that I was in a low mood, Layla didn't ask anything more either. Since I left New York, Sarah has been really down and distant. She is never in her office. And, when she is in her office, she is in a trance-like state in most of her business meetings and tries to keep her eyes open. On one occasion, Sarah had a business dinner, which I didn't see coming since she had been trying to stay out of the office. While there, her mother calls and says, "Lily is at home crying and she wants her daddy." That night, she was supposed to stay at the company to work overtime, but she received a call from the nanny at home, "Lily is crying and wants to see her dad." Sarah had no choice but to cancel the dinner. When she got home, she saw Lily being upset and even breaking the vase in the living room. That item was something I had bought. Sarah's face was cold, and she asked in a serious voice, "What are you making a fuss about?" Lily's eyes were glistening with tears, and she said in a small voice, "Dad hasn't come home in a long time. I called him, but I couldn't get through." Sarah was stunned, looking at her daughter for a while, then couldn't help but soften her voice. "Do you want to see Dad?" Lily nodded. She took a deep breath, wiped her tears for her daughter. "But it seems like Dad is angry with us." "No way," Lily's voice said with a bit of confidence. "Dad won't be angry with me. He loves me the most." Sarah thought for a while and said, "How about we go find Dad together? Ask him to forgive Mom." Lily was very confident because Dad had never been angry with her. But the next day, when the two of them were ready to go to Atlanta to find me, they saw distance in my eyes. I was no longer asking about Han, and I said in a cold voice, "What are you two doing here?" "I'm still at work." As soon as the receptionist told me someone was looking for me, I walked out and saw the two of them standing there. My life in New York had gotten on track. Seeing them, I thought of the cheap tears in the past. "Daddy, I haven't been home for a long time. Me and Mom came to pick you up to go back." Lily stepped forward and tried to hold my hand. I didn't dodge, but I didn't react. "What about Uncle Kevin?" I tilted my head and looked at Lily with a blank expression. I gently removed my hand from her small hand. "I have work to do and don't have time to play with you two." Lily was still standing there blankly. I turned and walked into the company. When passing by the two of them, I didn't stop for even a second. When I got off work in the afternoon, I discovered that Sarah's car was still parked in front of the company. Seeing me come out, Sarah immediately got out of the car and walked quickly towards me. "Frank, can we talk for a bit?" At that time, Kai-Bai's mother was still walking next to me. Hearing this, I had no choice but to turn around and say, "I'm sorry, I still have something to take care of." Layla's mother was very understanding with a polite smile. "Oh, it's okay, we can schedule the lunch for another time." Sarah had booked a restaurant near my company. When I got into the car, I didn't see Lily. As if seeing what I was thinking, Sarah explained, "I took her back to the hotel already." I nodded and said nothing more. Sitting down at the restaurant, when she handed me the menu, I pushed it away immediately. "Say whatever you want to say quickly. I have to go home and finish work." Sarah's movement stiffened slightly. She laughed bitterly, "Don't you even have time to have a meal with me?" I frowned slightly. "Then order whatever you want." She picked up the menu, looking at the dense rows of words, but she suddenly froze. Because she realized she didn't know what I liked to eat. Throughout the years of marriage, whether at home or outside, the menu was always arranged by me, and each time I chose dishes that she and Lily liked. Because she was so used to it, she never noticed that in those small things, my love sacrificed so much. Sarah forced herself to choose a few dishes and gave them to the waiter. When the food was brought up, I suddenly laughed coldly. Sarah was startled. "What's wrong?" I looked at the dishes calmly, my voice full of sarcasm. "I'm allergic to seafood." Having been married for half a year, I had remembered her preferences by heart. "Yet you don't even know my allergies. How many years have I endured this?" Hearing that, Sarah's body stiffened. I lowered my eyes and said softly, "Anyway, you've never cared about those things. Let's make it short and stop wasting my time. I have been there to have had it." My expression was as if I only wanted to cut everything off, which made Sarah feel a pang of pain. She was silent for a while, and said softly, "I'm sorry, Frank." I looked at the woman in front of me. Her face was full of weariness, but I was no longer moved. How many times have I made concessions, only to get hurt even more? If you really feel guilty, then please don't disturb my new life from now on. Let's consider ourselves done. Sarah's throat was choked, her eyes were red, and her voice was hoarse. "Besides that, I'll agree to anything. Okay for you if I ask. Is there something that could have changed this between us? Are you okay?" I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. "But now, besides that, I don't want anything." She didn't say anything, but tried to prolong the silence. But I was no longer patient to dally, immediately stood up. "Everything has already been made clear in the courtroom. You should go back and stay with Kevin Thompson and take care of your pregnancy. We don't need to meet again." But Sarah was still unwilling. She reached out and grabbed my wrist. "Frank, I've made it clear with Kevin Thompson." I clenched my fist, my eyes looked at her coldly, my voice lowered. "Sarah, you are really merciless. You can be so ruthless to your own child and to the person you love. But I, Frank, never look back. If I love, I will love with all my heart, but once I turn my back, I will never look back." My words were like a knife, stabbing straight into Sarah's heart. Her heart was like a rain of arrows piercing through, torn apart, and tattered. Frank dashed before she could finish, her arm was pushed away by another hand. A cold female voice rang out next to me. "He doesn't want to talk to you. Can't you hear?" I looked at the person who had just appeared. Layla was also stunned for a moment. Sarah looked at the strange woman who had suddenly appeared, and her eyes turned even darker. She asked sharply, "Who the hell are you?" Layla's face was cold, and she pulled me behind her, saying coldly, "What's it to you?" The two women were facing each other in the restaurant, and Layla didn't show any weakness. Facing Sarah, who had been through the business world for many years, she still didn't flinch. The surrounding eyes began to focus on us. I took a deep breath and gently tugged on Layla's sleeve, whispering, "Let's go." She immediately nodded. "Yeah." The two of us quickly left the restaurant without looking back. The sky outside was already dark, and the night wind blew away the anger in my chest. I turned to the person next to me and said seriously, "Thank you." Layla no longer had the cold look when facing Sarah, but just smiled softly and shook her head. "Frank, if she continues to look for you, just let me know. Between us, what there? Are you so concerned about me?" Layla blushed, her eyes dodging, and stammered, "I just don't like to see you flustered or in pain." I laughed and sighed softly and then said seriously, "Really, thank you so much." She quickly replied, "You're welcome at all. You haven't had dinner yet, have you? Let's go eat with me." Okay. After that light-hearted dinner, Layla personally took me home. When the car stopped, she was still uneasy and said, "Frank, I know that woman has hurt you deeply. Let me protect you." I was stunned, seeing the sincerity in the eyes of the girl. I pretended to smile comfortably. "Then fine then. I didn't know what would happen with Kevin and Sarah after that. I didn't want to get involved with those two people anymore, just hoping they wouldn't bother me. Just letting it go on like this would only wear out my last bit of patience. I thought that Sarah might have gone back to Chicago, but on a Saturday afternoon, I suddenly received a call from the hospital. "Hello, are you a relative of Sarah Taylor? She just had a car accident and is being treated at the hospital. Her emergency contact is you. Can you come to the city's trauma center?" I took a deep breath, clenched my phone, and said coldly, "I'm not. Call someone else. I'm sure there's a person named Thompson in her contact list." I made a mental note to change my contact status to family member rather than emergency contact. That bitch will get no such opportunity next time. Seeing me walk in, she smiled bitterly and whispered, her voice hoarse, "Frank, you still came. It proves that you still have me in your heart, right?" I looked up at her, my expression cold, my voice calm. "I came because I'm soft-hearted. Even if it was Kevin Thompson who had an accident and the doctor called me, I would still come." Sarah's eyes suddenly darkened, and she said softly, "Frank, I said that I would take care of everything myself and I did. Why can't you forgive me?" I stood next to the hospital bed, looking at her and laughing. "I think we don't need to use the word forgive anymore. I don't blame you anymore." Hearing that, Sarah thought that she still had a chance. Her eyes were full of expectation. But in the next second, I said in a voice without any expression, "Because I no longer love you. Now, I just want to be free." Sarah froze on the spot, her face full of shock. "I've already contacted your assistant. In the future, don't bother me with things like this again." My voice was as cold as ice. "If you still have a little guilt towards me, then go back to New York and live peacefully with Kevin Thompson. You're pregnant with his child." After saying those words, I turned my head and walked out of the hospital room. My back was still decisive and cold, just like the time I left her house. Sarah collapsed onto the bed, looking up at the white ceiling, her mind suddenly drifting back to many years ago. When she was younger, she had never seen my back. Because I was always the one following behind her like a tail that couldn't be cut off, always appearing when she needed me. She had never thought that she loved me. She only felt that it wasn't bad to have someone like that by her side. After getting married, the house was always maintained by me with an external warmth. Sarah had been an orphan since she was a child and had built her career from scratch, so she didn't know what the feeling of a home was like. It wasn't until I left that she understood that when I was there, she had a home. It's just a pity that people always have to wait until they lose something to understand what they had once had. Those tricks of trying to guilt me now couldn't move me. If it were before, seeing Sarah injured like that, I might have cried. But now, seeing her, I only felt disgusted. You could say that I learned my lesson and never looked back. I took the afternoon off. I originally planned to go straight home, but when I walked out of Sarah's hospital room and waited for the elevator in the hallway, I saw an unexpected person. Frank. Layla was also stunned when she saw me. I was surprised. "What are you doing here?" She smiled. "A friend is sick, so I came to visit." "What about you?" I didn't mention Sarah, just replied, "Me too." She then said quickly, "Frank, wait for me. Let's go home together later." After saying that, without waiting for me to answer, she hurried away. I could only stand there and wait. In less than 2 minutes, Layla came back. Seeing me still waiting there, she smiled, revealing her small canine teeth, a radiance full of youthful vitality. I said, "Let me treat you to a meal." Layla shook her head, "It's okay. Let me pay for it this time." I insisted on paying myself, and Layla didn't refuse again. The two of us chose a pickled cabbage fish hot pot restaurant on the top floor of the mall and ordered a 3-person combo. While waiting for the food, I looked at Layla and said sincerely, "Thank you so much. If it weren't for you, I really wouldn't have known what to do." Layla propped her chin up, looked at me and smiled, "It's no big deal." "Alright, but can I ask, Frank, what are your plans now?" Layla asked gently, her voice soft. I paused, looking at her with a faint smile. I don't have any plans. I still hold shares in Taylor Enterprises. If she provokes me again, I won't hesitate to show her what's what. Layla looked at me, her voice gentle. Okay, if you need anything, Frank, just let me know. Thanks in advance. After dinner, Layla walked me back to my apartment. When we got downstairs, she asked, how about we take Apollo for a walk tonight? I've been busy lately and haven't had time to take him out. He'd be so happy to see you. I figured I didn't have anything else to do at home. So, I nodded in agreement. I thought that I had made it very clear to Sarah that day or at the hospital, but when I got home, I received a text from an unknown number. It was clearly her, using someone else's phone. Frank, I still hope you'll give me a chance to make things right. It used to be me chasing you, now let me pursue you, okay? I just felt exhausted and didn't have the energy to dwell any longer. I sighed and replied, if Mrs. Taylor doesn't keep her word and continues to bother me, I'll release all the evidence of your affair with Kevin Thompson if you want the world to know. All that at your expense, and that of your company's. She might be better to go to another one, instead of that. There was silence on the other end for a long time, and then I received a reply, Frank, do you really have to be like this? Did you ever think about our child? I can't take care of this family alone. I almost laughed with rage, my fingers tapping on the screen. What you call a family has nothing to do with me. I devoted myself to you for 10 years, loving a heartless person, and spent 8 years raising a child who treats me like a stranger. So, Sarah, I don't need you or her. After sending the 2 messages, I immediately blocked Sarah's contact and texted Layla, asking her to recommend a few good lawyers for a lawsuit. Before getting off work, Layla sent a message saying, I've made an appointment with a lawyer at a restaurant near the company. I looked up information and litigation documents, working and preparing the files at the same time. As I was walking out of the company, I was about to call Layla when I saw Sarah's car parked in front of the gate. I hadn't had time to turn away when the car door opened, and Lily ran out with her little legs, hugging my leg tightly, her eyes tearful. Daddy, do you really not want me anymore? I miss you every day. I frowned, looking at the child I had raised, but there was no emotion in my heart. It was impossible. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and still pulled her hands away from my leg, saying calmly, Lily, I'm not your daddy anymore. Your mom will find you a new dad that you like. Lily's tearful eyes looked up at me. At that moment, Sarah, who still hadn't recovered from the accident, also came over, her forehead still bandaged. Looking at me, she said heavily, Frank, we've been married for 10 years. I don't believe you can really abandon this home. If you haven't the chance to go to another home. A clear voice rang out from a distance. All 3 of us looked over at the same time. I saw Layla walking slowly towards us. She stood between me and Sarah, raising her eyebrows, looking coldly at the woman in front of her. Using morality to bind others, it's pretty useful. Sarah's face immediately turned cold. She said emotionlessly, the matter between me and Frank is not up to outsiders like you to interfere. Layla curled her lips. Whether you let me interfere or not, I'm already interfering. After saying that, she didn't care about Sarah's ugly expression, looking down at Lily, who was glaring angrily, and asked with a smile, Hey, little one, if your mom is so unreasonable, does your dad have the right to choose someone else? Or do you want to live with your dad without your mom, without the mansion, and without the toys? Hearing the last sentence, Lily was immediately startled, taking a few steps back, hesitating and not knowing how to answer. Seeing that, I smiled slightly and then turned to look at Sarah. The kid has made her choice, so please don't bring your child to bother me anymore. I didn't say anything more. I took Layla's hand, turned around, and left. For all the years beside Sarah, it was always I who patiently coaxed her. Every time she was angry for no reason. Now that the roles are reversed, I only feel amused. I had to make her understand very clearly that I would never turn back, then she would know how to fear losing me. On the way to the restaurant, Layla and I didn't say anything. It wasn't until we arrived that I realized I was still holding her hand. I pulled my hand back as if burned, saying awkwardly, "I'm sorry." Layla smiled again, revealing her canine teeth. "It's okay, Frank, don't worry. I have many friends working as reporters in both Chicago and Atlanta. They will definitely be able to help you." I was sincerely grateful, "Thank you so much." Layla narrowed her eyes and smiled at me. "Actually, we don't need to be so polite." The girl in front of me had clear eyes. When looking at me, those eyes reflected my image completely, like a clean crystal without any impurities. My heart, which had been cold, trembled slightly, but I quickly hid it. I won't let myself fall into the emotional vortex again. Layla looked at me, lowered her head and contemplated, weighing things for a moment, and then asked, "Frank, I think that woman is not worthy of you at all. Why could you endure it for 10 years? If it were I would not." I laughed and said with light indifference, "At those years, she had just started out in the world, and if you love someone you should support them." I might not have told her these things before, but now, thinking back to the past, it was like a cloud passing by, leaving no painful emotions, so there was nothing to be embarrassed about telling her. I told her about my past with Sarah, from the first time we met to when I shamelessly pursued her, then got married and had children. I told it very briefly, very lightly. But this time when I told it, there was no sadness or regret in my eyes. I even smiled, my tone light. "Actually, I don't hate her. I only blame myself for being blind and wasting my youth on someone like that." I sighed softly, lowering my head and smiling wryly. "I'm not young anymore, but I don't regret having loved so deeply once. Knowing when to stop is enough. I'm still young, what do I have to regret?" Layla stared blankly at my radiant face, a huge wave rising in her heart. She couldn't help but ask, then, "Frank, have you ever thought about loving again?" I answered frankly, "Of course. I'm still young." Layla coughed softly and then used a joking tone to probe, "Then do you like young girls? I have a few friends to introduce you to." I laughed, saying helplessly, "Don't be so quick." Layla looked at me blankly, smiling foolishly. "I don't think it's too quick." When she said that, I don't know if it was my imagination, but the look in her eyes at that time seemed to ripple with an incomprehensible emotion, like an invisible net quietly covering me. I looked away, pretending not to understand anything. After that, Sarah and I had no contact for a while. Perhaps she was really afraid of my threat. During that time, the company needed someone to go to Atlanta to purchase a batch of new fabrics. I volunteered to go. Unexpectedly, on the plane, I met Layla again. She scratched her nose shyly. "I am in need for a bit of clothing and fabric, so I made it. You said that you were a person who comes around to Atlanta. My mom was worried about me being by myself, so she told me to go with you to protect you." I smiled. "Then thank you." Actually, since talking about the divorce with Sarah together, I had felt Layla's feelings for me. But someone who had fallen so hard, in the short term, didn't want to enter into any relationship again. Therefore, I could only pretend not to know anything. Atlanta is a coastal city with many tourist attractions. I came and finished the job. Layla asked me to go around. I hadn't relaxed in a long time. When walking on the beach with her, I felt it clearly. Layla kept looking at me. "Frank, are you avoiding me lately?" The sudden question surprised me. I was stunned and looked at her. "What are you asking?" Layla pursed her lips, her eyes darkening. "You rarely reply to my texts, and even when I ask you to take Apollo for a walk, you make excuses to decline." I smiled softly, silent for 2 seconds and then said, "Because I think we should keep a distance." Layla stopped, staring at me, her eyes unclear with emotion. "Frank, you know I like you, right?" I was taken aback by the straightforward words, my face heating up slightly. Before, when I was with Sarah, I was always very open, so almost no one pursued me. After getting married, it was even more unnecessary. So, this was probably the first time after 10 years that someone had confessed to me, and it was still a young girl I had known for a short time. I faltered, don't be so hasty. I've been married and have a child, aren't you afraid? Layla looked at me intently, her eyes bright and piercing, so hot that I was awkward. I don't care about those things. I know who you are as a person. The two of us sat side by side on a public bench. She continued to press and say, it might just have been for those 2 years, but you know, if you need me, I might come to you. Therefore, I didn't want there to be any other ambiguous relationship between us. Layla's face immediately darkened, saying softly, so you're rejecting me? I nodded. Yes. She lowered her head, silent for a few seconds, then looked up at me again, tentatively asking, then in the future, can I still hang around with you on the weekends and take Apollo for walks or go to dinners with you, or is all that now over? I laughed. Of course. I said that I see you as a friend. Hearing this, Layla was unhappy again, lowering her head and saying softly, don't see me as a friend. I never said I would give up. Frank, I will pursue you. I know that you were hurt too deeply by that woman, so you don't dare to trust anyone anymore. It's okay, I can wait. Wait until the darkness in your heart disappears, and I will end this lawsuit with you. I sighed helplessly, not saying anything more. Young people, when in love, are deaf to advice, just like me years ago. For Sarah, I went to Chicago regardless. But I have been through it. I know that no matter how hot the feelings are, they will be cooled by time. No one understands this better than I do. Love is the most fragile thing in relationships. Affection and friendship can be stable. Only love changes unpredictably. After that clear talk, Layla seemed to have torn through the thin layer between us. She started to appear beside me nonstop. During the days I stayed in Atlanta, she always went with me everywhere. Today, I came to the fashion company that I had scheduled to choose fabrics for the new collection. Layla was waiting outside. When I knocked on the door and entered the room, I unexpectedly saw a familiar person sitting inside. I stopped in place, and the company president enthusiastically introduced both sides. Sarah, seeing me, didn't show any surprise. She calmly stood up and smiled. Taylor Enterprises invests in many fashion companies and also has its own garment factories. Frank, I support you if you want to come back to work. Want her in that case? But you can move from her. I said in a calm voice. If you would let me move with you. I was not moved at all, smiling faintly. Now that you see that I'm strong, you're starting to use benefits to seduce me? Next would be threats, right? Sarah was flustered. It's not like that. Frank, I just want to say, as long as you're willing to come back to me, you can do anything. I looked at the woman who was compromising in front of me, and laughed softly. I once said I wanted to go to work, but every time I mentioned it, Sarah dismissed it, saying, what's the point of doing a few low-paying jobs? It's both tiring and not as good as sitting at home. I'll give you everything you want. But I never cared about how much money she gave me. I only stayed because I thought she cared about me. Now I understand that she can take a step back if she wants to. I found it so ridiculous that I laughed out loud. Sarah, you can't give me what I need anymore. Oh, right, I found a friend who works as a reporter. You probably don't want Taylor Enterprises to have a scandal of CEO cheating, do you? After saying that, I turned to leave. Unexpectedly, Sarah chased after me. She grabbed my hand tightly, saying seriously, Frank, I know you don't want to hear anything now, but you know, I lost my parents when I was young. During high school and college, there was no money in my pockets. Besides you, no one valued me, and I don't know how to love someone. That's why I unintentionally hurt you. Frank, please give me another chance, a last chance. I interrupted her with a sarcastic tone. I love you so much. Aren't you a memory genius? You've been at the top of the whole school for many years, but you can't even copy love? You still dare to use the excuse that you don't know how to love. Sarah, love isn't business. You can't say it out loud. I once chose you without regret, so now I choose to leave and will not turn back. As the voice faded, I would have to pull her off and take her with me to some place better. I glanced in the corner of my eye and saw Layla getting out of the car, frowning as she looked in this direction. I didn't say any more to Sarah, shook her hand off, and walked straight towards Layla. "Are you okay?" As soon as she got close, Layla asked worriedly. I felt softened, shaking my head slightly and smiling lightly. "Let's go." The scene of me leaving side by side with another woman was like a knife stabbed deep into Sarah's heart. But now, she didn't even have the qualifications to chase after me. She had no courage, no reason. She didn't dare to go home. Kevin Thompson has been taken to a different place to recuperate, as that house used to be our home. Now, it was no longer warm but just an empty shell. Since I left, Lily had been crying and making a fuss, sometimes demanding me and sometimes mentioning Kevin Thompson. Only now did Sarah realize what I had given her and how much I had sacrificed for the family. It was because she didn't know how to cherish it, because she was complacent, that she destroyed our marriage. After this, I carefully chose the company, avoiding all businesses under Sarah's control. Fortunately, everything went smoothly. As soon as the work in Atlanta was over, Layla and I quickly returned. A few days after returning, I received a notice from the court. My divorce application had been approved. The court summons had also been sent to Sarah. Sure enough, before long, Sarah came again, waiting for me to get off work in front of the company. She walked over, her eyes bloodshot, her face pale. It was clear that she hadn't slept well for many days. "Frank, let's have a meal together, okay?" I looked at her coldly, saying with my current relationship, there was no reason to do so. Sarah smiled wryly. "Consider it a farewell meal, can't we?" "Frank, please have pity on me." In the end, I agreed. I realized she had something she wanted to say. This time, she chose a Western restaurant and even handed me the menu. I randomly selected a few dishes. While waiting for the food, I asked, "Whatever you want to say it quickly. Anyway, it's the last meal before the court." "I'm sorry." What surprised me was that Sarah's first sentence was actually an apology. "Frank, over the past few days, I have always reviewed myself. The matter with Kevin Thompson was just a moment of impulsiveness, just a drunken stupor. I'm sorry for hurting you." Her voice was hoarse, but she didn't dare to look into my eyes. "I know I'm terrible. I'm not worthy of you." She took a deep breath, as if she had just made a decision, and looked up at me intently. "From now on, I will no longer bother you." I had already anticipated this, so I wasn't surprised. I slightly curled my lips and replied softly, "It's good if you've thought it through." Sarah looked at me, the man who had become so indifferent to her. A sense of heartache welled up in her heart. "Frank, even if we get divorced, can we still be friends?" I looked at her coldly. "We are getting there after that." In all my years of love I had never had the chance to say it loud. "I want to be a friend. For all I give to you. I will never know." Sarah nodded. "Even if it's just a glimmer of hope, that's okay." Perhaps this was the most peaceful meal ever. Since the day I left New York, after eating, we said goodbye and left. After that, I unblocked Sarah's number, set the date for the court hearing, and received the divorce papers on Tuesday of the following week. Sarah was silent for a while, and then agreed. It was as if a burden in my heart had been lifted. The next day, Layla called, her voice full of worry. "Frank, what's wrong? Did she find you again?" I laughed, explaining, "It's nothing. She promised she wouldn't bother me again. You can rest assured." On the other end of the line, Layla breathed a sigh of relief, even happier than I was. She enthusiastically asked me out. "Layla, you will need the chance to feel the vitality and freshness of youth. Since I was not with Sarah, you will need to feel that again. After getting married, I had lost my youth. What a friend this has always been to me." Okay, here's that rewritten passage in English with Americanized names, locations, and customs. I hardly go to places like that anymore. But for her enthusiasm, I agreed. But actually, Layla didn't take me to some loud, chaotic dive bar, but to a quiet cocktail lounge near the company. As soon as we walked in, the bartender at the counter called out, "Well, Layla, you bring a friend with you." Layla glared. "Don't say nonsense." I just smiled and sat down with her in a corner. I asked, "Do you come here often?" She quickly explained, "I just invested here to help out some friends who wanted to start a business, and it's a good place to have drinks, relax and chat. But, I don't come here often." I was surprised. Pretty impressive to have a bar when you are that young. Hearing me praise her, Layla's face flushed, her eyes serious as she said softly, "I may still seem like a child to you, but I'm 23 years old now." I understood her point and smiled, changing the subject. "You should date in college. That's the best time." Hearing me say that, Layla didn't beat around the bush anymore and asked directly, "Frank, is there not a chance for us?" I looked at her and replied helplessly, "You're just caught up in the moment and don't you just see me as a person to look up to, I see you as a very independent person that any man would look for." So I would say no. Layla's voice became unusually serious. "Frank, if you're only saying that because you're afraid of love, then please believe me, I am not that girl." In the girl's eyes was a fierce, burning light. Sarah had never looked at me with that kind of look. That's why I could be so calm now. I took a sip of my drink, lowering my head and whispering, "Layla, I just ended a failed marriage. I don't have the strength to start a new relationship." Hearing me say that, her eyes lit up instead, asking happily, "So that means it's not a rejection, just a need for time, right?" I thought for a moment and only replied, "You can think that way." Layla officially started to pursue me. This even reached her mother's ears. She was a very open-minded parent, and even knowing about my past, she didn't show any prejudice, saying instead, "Just follow your heart, dear." Layla, who was happy, smiled at her mother. This seemed to make me more likely that she's going to ask if I would be her first boyfriend. I don't know when she sent me these letters, but this would make her more lovable in her heart. I looked at Layla, but was a bit embarrassed that our connection would be so close. That would make me more excited, knowing that someone would care about me. She said in such love that it got a bit overwhelming. As Layla did all these things, it was enough to say yes, as her feelings just came from within. One weekend, Layla invited me to visit her company. I didn't refuse. But when I arrived, I realized that her company was quite large, located in a luxurious office building. There weren't many employees, but the interior was very tidy and exquisite, and most of them were young people. Layla called me Frank in front of everyone. I had been at home for too long and had never been in contact with so many college students at once. For a moment, I felt like I had rejuvenated a few years. Layla enthusiastically took me to tour the company. As she started to talk about the future plans, one of the girls couldn't help but laugh, teasing, "Oh my gosh, Layla is telling her boyfriend about her career goals." Layla's face flushed. Though she was happy on the inside, she was afraid that I would be embarrassed and immediately pulled me into her office. I stood in front of a display case full of models, asking in surprise, "Why do you have so many toy models?" Layla was afraid that I would think she was childish and quickly explained, "They're characters from our first game. They're just for display, not toys. If you like them, I'll give them all to you." I laughed, "I just think it's interesting. It's a waste to give them to me." No way, those were the first characters she created in those games. She always spoke about it. I might have to go get them back with that. She shook her head. "Why would it be a waste? These are the first characters I created. They are very meaningful to me. I don't want to give them to anyone. But if you take them with you, I am very happy." Layla's words were very sincere, not like empty sweet talk. Even though I refused a few times, she still tried to give me a few models. Those small models were like Layla's heart, slowly seeping into the softest part of me. I don't know when they had begun to sprout. The weather in Atlanta was slow to turn cold, but it was finally getting chilly. Perhaps because I had lived in Chicago for a long time, I no longer felt as cold as before. I wore thin clothes to work and ended up catching a bad cold, running a fever of 102 degrees and having to be hospitalized for a blood infection. When Layla found out, she was both worried and angry, staying up all night, sitting by my bedside, taking my temperature. In the middle of the night, I vaguely opened my eyes and saw her slumped over the edge of the bed, dozing off, with dark circles under her eyes. I called out hoarsely, "Layla." She immediately opened her eyes, seeing that I was awake, and quickly asked, "How do you feel? Is anything uncomfortable?" Seeing me shake my head, she immediately took the thermometer to measure. Seeing the temperature drop significantly, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. "You scared me to death today. It's so cold and you only wore a thin jacket to work." I smiled lightly, whispering, "Thank you. I feel much better now." Layla pouted. "But you're still very uncomfortable being sick, right? You don't know how worried I was today." A hard feeling to get rid of. A hard feeling to name welled up in my heart. Perhaps because people are easily weak and easily moved when they are sick, Layla was about to blame me when she looked up and saw that my eyes were red. She was startled, asking softly, "What's wrong?" "Frank, I didn't mean to blame you, I'm just afraid you'll catch a cold again." Her hasty words of being misunderstood and her flustered look made me couldn't help but laugh. I sniffed, my voice sounding choked. "It's not anger, just feeling strange. Before, I was always the one taking care of others. I've never had anyone be so concerned about me when I'm sick, staying by my side like this." Layla immediately understood my intention and knew who I was thinking about. She took the courage to take my hand and placed it beside the bed, her eyes firm. "Frank, as long as you need me, I will always be by your side." In that instant, I really wanted to. Following those emotions, I nodded and opened my heart to start a new love, as if to make up for the injuries of the past. But reason prevailed. Before that burning feeling, I only smiled lightly, my voice soft. "Thank you." Seeing the radiant light in her eyes gradually fading, I suddenly felt a pang of pain. The company gave me 3 days off, but I only stayed in the hospital for 1 day and went home. I couldn't bear to sit still. Even if I didn't go to the company, I still did some small things at home. That afternoon, Layla asked me out to walk the dog. "Frank, wait until you're fully recovered. There's a college homecoming dance next week. Do you want to come?" she asked tentatively. I was stunned and immediately shook my head. "Forget it. Those are all young people's activities." Layla laughed. "Why do you always say you're old? You're not old at all. Last time when I brought you to my company, everyone thought you were my senior." Hearing that, I was a little embarrassed, but seeing her so enthusiastic, I didn't have the heart to refuse. Thinking about it, I said, "Let's put it this way, if I'm free at that time, I'll go. If there's work at the company, then I can't." Layla smiled, muttering softly, "You will definitely be free." I couldn't hear clearly. The party was held on Wednesday, a weekday. I thought I definitely couldn't go. But that noon, Ms. Sherman called me into her office, saying helplessly, "My child rarely asks for anything. There's nothing important this afternoon. You go and have fun with her." I walked out of the company in a daze and saw Layla standing by the car, waving with a smile. But she didn't wait for me to get in, but took me to a mall nearby to buy clothes to wear to the party. Then, she pulled me into a luxurious men's clothing store. It had been a long time since I bought clothes, especially a suit like that. I used to like to buy them, even if I didn't have a chance to wear them. But Sarah always complained that it was a waste of money. Later, I didn't bother to buy them anymore. "Frank, I think this set suits you very well." I looked up and met her clear eyes, holding a good set. I grabbed it and went in to change. Walking out of the dressing room, I saw Layla's eyes seem to light up. "It's too handsome." She praised me without hesitation. I felt a little awkward, pulling at the hem of my jacket. Standing in front of the mirror, looking at my upright figure in the suit, I suddenly realized that it had been a long time since I bought nice clothes for myself. The two of us wore the new clothes we bought and went straight to the school's dance hall. The venue was organized in the large hall of a building. The music was lively, the lights were bright, and the dresses were gorgeous. "Hey, Layla, you have someone with you today. Sister Dew's flower has blossomed." "Who's that student?" "I've never seen him before." It could be seen that Layla was well liked. As soon as we walked in, many people came to greet us. Curious and friendly eyes kept looking at me. Layla held my hand tightly, glaring at the crowd. "Don't joke around." I thought Layla was going to deny our relationship, but in the next second, I saw her turn her head to look at me and smile. "I'm pursuing him. Everyone, don't scare him away." As soon as these words were spoken, the whole hall erupted in cheers and teasing. The lively atmosphere drew me in, completely integrating myself into the enthusiasm of youth. Layla pulled me to a quiet corner, whispering, "Frank, can I ask you to dance?" Dancing used to be my strength, but I hesitated. It had been many years since I danced. Layla reached out her hand, her palm open in front of me. Her eyes reflected the bright lights in the hall, smiling. "It's okay, I'll teach you." My heart trembled slightly, finally placing my hand on hers, joining the crowd together. At first, I was a little awkward, moving clumsily, stepping on her feet a few times. Layla laughed, "Or, you can just step on my feet and I'll lead you to dance." I glared at her. "I can do it myself." "Okay." She pretended to regret it, but I, who used to be good at dancing, quickly regained my rhythm. The music and the noisy voices only made me more excited, the enthusiasm that I had never had seemed to return at this moment. After dancing, Layla pulled me into a classroom near the hall. There were a few friends inside, the ones who had teased us just now. There were both boys and girls, some enthusiastically waving. "Hello, brother-in-law. Get out of here." Layla pulled me to the back. After the two of them found seats, she explained, "They're going to play a game. If you don't want to play, then sit with me for a while, okay?" I laughed. "Now that I'm here, let's play." The games that young people play, whether in the past or now, are only a few types. The organizer held a pen, introducing, "It's boring to play complicated games. Let's play truth or dare. Whoever the pen points to has to choose." Although it was said to be playing together, I realized they were trying to match me and Layla. Therefore, not surprisingly, the first round pointed to Layla. She ignored the gazes around her, choosing truth. Everyone was disappointed. "Then let's put it this way, Layla, we all know the other things. Tell us when you started to like Frank." Layla blushed, glancing at me, and asked softly, "Can I say it?" I also smiled. "If you're playing truth or dare, you have to tell the truth." Layla's face turned even redder, like a ripe tomato. But her voice was as gentle as before. "So you must take a good look." But if she didn't, she would say goodbye and leave. It sounds like Layla is starting to push the relationship harder and has made a connection that will last forever. She had to be close and not lose me with all her efforts. As she would love to keep that connection forever, she was happy and smiled as the moment lasted. In the car with her after dinner, I was happy and thought, I can say yes to the date since I am a friend.